Hello, today we're going to talk about social anxiety. Let's begin with its introduction. It is common to feel a bit of anxiety around older people from time to time. If the anxiety is more severe than regular sinus and is interfering with your ability to live your life, you may be suffering from social anxiety, one of the most common anxiety disorders. It is thought that between 2 and 7 people out of every 100 experience social anxiety disorder every year in context of Australia. The good news is that cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is an effective psychological treatment for social anxiety disorder, and with the right treatment you can recover it. Basically, in this presentation we'll be talking about what is social anxiety, why social anxiety might not get better by itself, and treatments for social anxiety. So first thing we're going to talk about is the definition of social anxiety again. So do you ever feel anxious when you are around other people, or if you might have to be the center of attention? Do you worry that other people might notice something about you or about the way you behave and judge you for it? Social anxiety is the name of feeling these kinds of fears in social situations. Symptoms of social anxiety disorder include 1. Feeling self-conscious and anxious in social situations where you might be exposed to scrutiny by other people. 2. Fear that you will behave in a way that will be judged negatively by other people. 3. Avoiding social situations or enduring them with great difficulty. 4. Worrying what other people think of you. 5. The kind of social situations that bother you almost always provoke fear or anxiety. And the last but not least, your anxiety is out of proportion to the actual dangers posed by the situation. Do any of these symptoms feel familiar to you? We can separate the effects of social anxiety into how you might think, how you might feel, how you might act, and what you might pay attention to. So when you are in the social situations, you might think that worry about what other people think of you, worry that other people will judge you. You might worry that other people will notice that you are anxious or will notice your symptoms of anxiety, for example, shaking or blushing. Or you might expect the worst from social situations. Or you might dread activities such as starting conversations, speaking on the telephone, meeting people, and you might think they will notice I'm anxious. They will think I'm weird because I'm blushing. You might think I'm making a mess of this. You might think I won't be able to get my words out. And when you are in social situations, you might feel fear or discomfort when you are interacting with other people, or anxiety just being around other people. You might also feel physical symptoms of anxiety, including blushing, fast heartbeat, trembling, sweating, shaking, upset stomach, nausea, dizziness, or lightheadedness. So when you are in social situations, you might also act in the following ways. Avoid situations where you might be the center of attention, or where you worry you might embarrass yourself, for example, speaking to unfamiliar people, attending parties, starting conversations, dating, going to work or school, or you might do things to control how you come across to other people, for example, sometimes called safety behavior, for example, separating or preparing what you might say, trying not to be noticed, speaking quietly, hiding your face, staying cool. You might also act like this. Spend time after a social situation post-morteming and analyzing your performance, particularly flaws in your performance. Furthermore, when you are in the social situations, you might pay attention to the negative impression or image you have of yourself. So how you are coming across to other people, and feelings of self-consciousness and self-awareness. That means being extremely self-aware about your presentation and presence. So what causes social anxiety? There is no single cause for social anxiety. Some things that make you more likely to experience social anxiety include: 1. Evolution factors. Like many mammals, human beings have evolved to care about our place in our social group. In the distant past, being kicked out of your pack or tribe could mean death. To some extent, we are still programmed or hardwired to worry about being excluded or rejected. This inbuilt concern means that all of us are likely to feel a bit of socially anxious or on occasion. Another factor could be personality. From a very early age, children vary from being outgoing and adventurous to shy and timid. Psychologists talk about children and adults having a personality that makes them likely to approach or avoid. If you are naturally more withdrawn, cautious, or restrained, you are more likely to develop social anxiety disorder. Another factor could be the way that other people have treated you. People with social anxiety have sometimes suffered difficult experiences at the hands of others. This might include experiences of bullying, teasing, ridicule, humiliation, trauma, or abuse. You might have strong memories or mental images of humiliating things that have happened to you. Basically, the traumatic experiences of past can trigger you to exclude yourself from those situations. Another factor could be your beliefs and assumptions about yourself, how others see you, and how you think you need to behave in public. We all have internal rules about how we think we need to behave and how we expect other people to act. If you have beliefs or assumptions that other people will be very critical, it can put you on edge and make you feel more anxious around other people. Or having an appearance or condition that draws attention might be another contributing factor to your social anxiety. Not everybody who has a physical difference develops social anxiety, and not everybody with social anxiety looks different. However, you may have had negative reactions from others about your height, weight, hair color, or appearance, and this can increase feelings of self-consciousness. Research evidence suggests that there may be genes which make you likely to develop emotional problems in general, but none which make you likely to develop social anxiety. So now let's talk about what triggers social anxiety. Basically, social anxiety is worse in situations where you fear you might be evaluated or judged by other people. The situations can be in person, online, or on the telephone, and situations where you are the center of attention are often developed or described as the most anxiety-provoking. Some situations that have been described as triggering by people who suffer from social anxiety include answering the telephone, being at a party where there are people who I don't know, being asked to perform in any way, speaking to shop assistants, asking a question in a group, posting comments online, or basically sharing your photos or sharing your opinion in online or anywhere in the community, chairing a meeting, speaking to your child's teacher, having to speak to someone of the opposite sex, or giving a speech, talking to people at social events, speaking to senior people at work, or it might be at home where you don't feel comfortable talking to your siblings or family members, or meeting your neighbors, or attending schools, basically. So basically we consider every individual as a unique individual. So the experience of social anxiety might be unique case by case. There are certain factors that contribute in social anxiety keep going. So research studies have shown that cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT, is the most effective treatment for social anxiety. CBT therapists work a bit like firefighters. While the fire is burning, they are not so interested in what caused it, but are most focused on what is keeping it going and what they can do to put it out. This is because if they can work out what keeps a problem going, they can treat the problem by removing the fuel and interrupting this maintaining cycle. In 1995, the psychologists David Clarke and Adrian Wells published an influential Models of Social Anxiety, which describes some of the parts that keep social anxiety going. So according to David Clarke and Adrian Wells, the impression you have of yourself or your self-image. 2. Your beliefs and assumptions. 3. Negative automation thoughts, or simply abbreviated NATS, and images. 4. Self-consciousness and self-focused attention. 5. Safety behaviors and avoidance. 6. Anticipatory anxiety and worry. 7. Replaying social events, or simply called post-morteming and rumination, are some of the factors that keep social anxiety going. If you are experiencing social anxiety disorder, you can have two options for the treatment. Basically, one would be psychological treatment, also called community-based treatment, and another one is clinical therapy, or we can simply say non-clinical and clinical therapy. As a social worker, I would always prioritize and encourage you to go for a non-clinical therapy because it is sustainable and it is affordable, efficient, and accessible in every community. So if you're interested to access psychological treatments for social anxiety disorder, then the psychological treatment for social anxiety, which has the strongest research support in individual, one-to-one cognitive behavioral therapy is specifically designed for social anxiety. This is sometimes called cognitive therapy for social anxiety disorder or cognitive therapy social anxiety disorder. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a popular form of talking therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy therapists understand that what we think and do affects the way we feel. Unlike some other therapists, it is often quite structured. After talking things through so that can understand your problem, you can expect your therapist to set goals with you so that you both know what you are working towards. You should seek out a therapist who has specialist training and experience in treating social anxiety disorder. At the start of most sessions, you will set an agenda together so that you have agreed what that session will concentrate on. Ingredients of effective cognitive behavioral therapy treatment for social anxiety disorder include developing a personalized cognitive model of your social anxiety, experimenting with your attention and safety behaviors in conversations, video and photographic feedback to correct your negative self-imagery, attention training to practice focusing externally, behavioral experiments to test your specific negative beliefs and assumptions, using surveys to understand what other people think, targeting anticipatory anxiety and post-event rumination, memory work to process memories of socially traumatic experiences, developing a therapy blueprint. However, in conjunction with non-clinical therapy, you can access medical treatments as well. But medical treatments for social anxiety disorder are typically recommended as a second-line treatment if cognitive behavioral therapy is refused. The UK National Institute for Health and Care Excellence guidelines recommend that the class of medications called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, such as escitalopram or sertraline, should be offered. Basically, if you are interested for clinical therapy, they're gonna prescribe you some medicines that help you to influence or even manipulate the release of serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and all those chemicals that release in your brain to influence your emotional Parents. It is really important to ask yourself if you have social anxiety, because early interventions are the best intervention. However, social anxiety should only be diagnosed by a mental health professional or a doctor. Answering the screening questions below, you can find questions and some options, 4 options for each question in my screen as well, can give you an idea of whether you might find it helpful to have a professional assessment. First question should be, I avoid situations where I might be the center of attention. Options: never, occasionally, sometimes, often. Question 2. Fear of embarrassment causes me to avoid doing things or speaking to people. Options: never, occasionally, sometimes, often. Question 3. When I'm with other people, I worry about being embarrassed, looking stupid, or doing something to humiliate myself. Options: never, occasionally, sometimes, and often. Question 4. If I have to endure a social situation, it makes me feel very anxious. Options: never, occasionally, sometimes, often. Question 6. The speaking in front of a group of people makes me feel anxious. Options: never, occasionally, sometimes, often. If you answered often to most of these questions and you find that these fears cause hindrance in your life, then you might be suffering from social anxiety. Unfortunately, you might find it helpful to speak to your general practitioner or doctor or a mental health professional about how you are feeling. That's all for today. This is not my original content. I have cited most of the information from Psychology Tools, which is an online platform for registered social workers, mental health social workers, psychologists, counselor, and all the mental health professionals working in the mental health field. If you have any questions, if you want to talk about your mental health, complexities, emotional difficulties, or anything related to mental health and well-being, you feel free to reach out to me.